Hi, I'm Fred Burton, and I'm joined today with my colleague Scott Stewart via the phone. And we thought that we would talk about Scott's weekly on lone wolves. Scott, I noted in your piece that we've had 3 attacks in 1 week, which is a tempo that we've not seen before. What's your takeaway from that?
Well, Fred, it's very interesting. I mean, this is really the type of tempo that these jihadist ideologues have had hoped for all along. Really, since they began promoting heavily, these sorts of leaderless resistance attacks in the West. We saw that first with Al Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula in 2009. Later, we saw Al Qaeda Corps get in on the bandwagon in 2010, and then last month in September, we saw the Islamic State, call for jihadists in the West to rise up and, these same kind of simple attacks. Run over people with a car, smash their heads with a rock, shoot them, stab them, whatever you can.
Do you think the 3 attacks that we saw last week, the 2 in Canada and that horrific attack on the NYPD with the man with a hatchet, do you think that's an anomaly, or do you think that we're going to continue to see that degree of tempo?
That's the question, and obviously the thing that we're looking for. In the past, quite frankly, attempts to get the grassroots to take this kind of action on a consistent basis have pretty much failed. I mean, we've seen these attacks on and off over the years, but we've never seen any sort of a consistent heavy tempo, and certainly not the type that they had hoped to invoke. At this point, I'm thinking that perhaps we had a spike in relation to the Islamic State call, but I really don't see us having 3 attacks a week for the next years.
One of the more fascinating aspects of these lone wolf attacks to me, and you and I have talked about this extensively and written about it, is the fact that pre-operational surveillance has to take place. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, it's very important. I mean, people get all freaked out by the use of the term lone wolf, and they just think that it's, somebody that cannot be detected, these attacks cannot be stopped. But really, when we look at it from a how perspective, in order to conduct an attack, whether you're a cell, a large organization, or a lone actor, you still need to complete the same steps of the terrorist attack cycle. So as we look at that attack cycle, one of the disadvantages that a lone assailant has is he has to do everything himself. Sometimes if you have a cell or a larger organization, you can have specific cells doing different tasks. But the problem with a lone wolf or a lone assailant, he has to do everything himself, and because of that, he brings himself repeatedly, into the possibility of being detected.
One of the aspects on how to combat this is the concept of the grassroots defenders, which I think is a very unique term that you've talked about for years. Why don't you explain for our audience what that means?
Well, I think, one of the things that we have to understand is that the large security and intelligence agencies are focused on combating, these larger threats. When we really look at these lone offenders, it's very rare that they're able to conduct a spectacular attack that has, massive casualties. For every Breivik attack, the Norway attack, where he kills dozens of people, most of these lone wolves are more like stray mutts. But really, the scope of what they do is limited. It's not that broad. And so because of that, these national-level assets really need to focus on trying to prevent the mass casualty attacks, large truck bombings, or, 19 guys coming into your country to fly airplanes into buildings that are going to kill thousands of people. The other part of it is because of the way these lone assailants operate, quite frankly, unless they're talking on social media or talking to terrorist suspects abroad, they're probably not going to be picked up, by a CIA informant or an NSA wiretap. And because of that, they're more likely to run into or to come to the attention of citizens or police officers, as they are planning their attacks and going through the steps of the attack cycle. And we've seen numerous examples of that in the United States where alert cops, making a traffic stop have caught guys with IEDs in the trunk. We saw that in the Carolinas. So it's really, these kind of people are much more likely to, encounter these lone offenders as they are planning their attacks, then some, JTTF task force.
Well, that's fascinating, Scott. That's all we have time for today. We appreciate you watching this video, and for more information, please take a look at our website at www.stratfor.com.